We're back with lesson 1, part 3. We've gotten our web server up and running. So we're going to want to create a few, or maybe 1 or 2 PHP files, but we're also going to need a folder. So what I want to do is actually, for us to figure out, we'll do a quick survey. What are we going to build? I don't want to build another video game site like we built last year. I think we should build something else together in our Monday class. So I'm open for suggestions. We can take a vote. So what kind of site, if you have any ideas or suggestions, what kind of site do you want to build? Put up maybe a few suggestions and we can take a vote. So we're going to be building a site in class together Monday morning, something where we're going to have some dynamic data. So our web application could be about anything. So what interests you?
Maybe something like a recipe database that sorts based on like dietary restrictions, something like that would work.
Okay, so that's a great option. Haven't done that one in class, so we could do recipes. Thanks for the suggestion. Anybody else? Let's put up a few ideas and we can have a vote. Music library, okay, I've done that before, but we could do that. I think I did that back in 2018 in our class, or 2019, we did a music library. Thanks, Belinda. Okay, we could do, an appointment calendar. Thanks, Andres. Yeah, we could also do like our own little version of IMDb, so like a movie library. Or travel, sure, okay, thanks, Eric. Yeah, so we could have travel destinations. You know what, Hamid? A storehouse, we're actually going to build some kind of like shopping site next semester in fall in our ASP.NET class. We will build an e-commerce site with a shopping cart, online payment, all of that. Yeah, so all of these will have create, read, update, and delete, absolutely. So Hamid, I love the idea. We'll get back, we'll do that in the fall. Okay, so let me present the poll here. Let me save and activate. I do use this site a fair bit. Okay, so if you go to, I'll put the link in the chat, but you can also see it. I like using poll everywhere. So if you go to pollev.com/richfreeman521, vote on what kind of web application you want to build in class together.
Are you allowed to vote for multiple options?
Well, maybe vote for one for now, and then we'll see, Tyler. And if we wind up with a final tie, maybe I'll cast the tie-breaking vote. Kieran's rooting for a music library. Yeah, that's poll everywhere is fun. We will use this poll everywhere a lot. And it allows us to do different kinds of polls, word clouds, short answer, that kind of stuff. So we use it not every week, but we'll use it a lot. Okay, so it looks like we've got Belinda, my younger daughter can help you out. She's taking film at Laurier. So it looks like we're doing a movie library. Well, the good news is if you want to do one of these other things in your assignments, you're going to have to build something else. So, if you really wanted to do the recipe library or travel destination, you'll be able to do that in assignment 1 and 2. Okay, so if we're going to build a movie library, just escape out of here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make a folder. I want to make a folder for our movie library. So I'm going to go into my Windows directory and under XAMPP and htdocs. So in here is where I want to create the folder. And I guess we could come up with a name for our movie library. So I'm going to make a new folder here. If anybody has a suggested name of what we want to call it, we don't want to call it IMDb, so we might want to make up our own name. You can call the folder anything you like. Just thinking of a clever name. What could we call it? This is our PHP movie site. Falafel Cinemas. Okay, we could.
I just went with a more simple name, just movie base, since the
Sure.
database
Yeah,
of
you can
movies.
call it anything you like. Movie flicks, movies for nerds. Sure, you can call your folder anything you like. All right, I'll go with that one, I think. PHP flicks. Oh, that's a good one, Andres, because that's got. All right, I think I'll go with that. I'm going to call mine PHP flicks. I like that. Those are some great names. So you can call your folder whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. So I've created the folder. Make sure it's inside your htdocs folder. And once you do that, notice if my web server is, my Apache server is still active, I can now browse to it. I could go to localhost/phpflix, and it shows me I've got an empty folder here now. So now we're going to open up this folder in Visual Studio Code, and we'll try playing around with a few simple PHP pages. So I'm just going to right-click my PHP Flicks folder, and I'll choose Open with Code. So now I've got an empty folder. So I'm going to create a file here. I'm going to create a new file, which I will call index.php. So index is a special name. It means if we don't provide any file name here, this is the file that will load by default. Index is a default document. So we can put on some basic HTML here, first of all. We'll put on HTML, head, title. I know I'm missing a couple of tags here. And I should probably have a meta. I'll add that a bit. We'll just put on an H1 that says, welcome to PHP Flick. So we'll just start off just first of all with basic HTML. And so there's actually no PHP here, but we just want to see how our web server works. So you can just create a basic HTML page. And now if I go back to my browser and refresh, right, we just get our index page loading because it's the default document in our PHP folder. So we're not using our AWS web server, we're using our local web server. So let's try and write a little bit of PHP code on here. I'm going to open a set of PHP tags, open and close. I'm going to declare a variable and I want to print out a message. So all variables we said start with a $sign. So I'll create a variable called first name. And then I just want to print out this variable. So we're going to use the echo command and we'll just print out our variable. So underneath our H1, I want it to just print out the value of Rich on the screen. You can add your own first name. Now when I save, notice I'm getting a red underline here. How come? You might also get prompted in Visual Studio Code to install a PHP extension. I've got one installed. So in the extensions, do I even have? Yeah, so you may want a PHP Intellisense. I think I'm going to install this. So this is code hinting for PHP. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. Okay, you don't have a red underline? That's okay. If you don't have it. So I'm going to try and load the page now. Let's see what happens. I'll go back to my browser. And I get this. Unexpected echo on line 10 and my code editor. So how come, why did I get this error? Why does our page crash now? Declared a variable, we gave it a value. That's right, Belinda. We didn't terminate our first statement with a semicolon. So it reads these two lines together. Once I terminate this line with a semicolon, my red underline goes away. And now it prints out my variable here. So I need this semicolon to terminate this first line. Otherwise, it reads these as one command. And the PHP interpreter can't make sense of it. Now, one thing to note that's really different about PHP is that unlike in Java, PHP is loosely typed. Java is a strongly typed language. PHP is a loosely typed language. What does that mean? What is a strongly typed versus a loosely typed programming language?
If I remember right, it means that things like variables are sort of have their types implied based on what they contain.
That's exactly right. Okay, so in Java, when we create a first name variable, we have to say it's a string. PHP doesn't allow us to say it's a string. So in Java, we could give it a name of a value of Rich, but we couldn't then change the value to say 1, 2, 3. PHP is fine with this. I want to do this. If I want to change the value and then print it out again. So in Java, we wouldn't be able to do this because first name would be a string. It's not going to allow us to then assign it a numeric value. But PHP, it's totally fine with this. Let's save the file. So now notice first it prints a string, then it prints a number. I could change it to a date, a Boolean. PHP doesn't care. So you might think, oh, well, this is a good thing, right? We get less errors with data types. It's true we get less errors with PHP because it's loosely typed, but it's also easier for us to make mistakes. Because something like a Java compiler, it will catch these because we can't change data types in a variable. PHP doesn't care. So notice it implies, as I think Tyler said, it implies it's a string, and then it implies it's an integer. We can do this with PHP, can't do this with a language like Java or C# that we're going to use next semester. What if we wanted to, what would happen here? What do you think will happen? So we've now got 3 echo or print statements. We set it as a string and display it. We change it to a number and display it. What will happen? You think it'll print 1, 2, 3 again? Okay, well, let's try it. Raj thinks it'll be undefined, like in JavaScript. So this actually throws a warning. So how come, why do I get this warning on line 13? How come line 10 works, line 12 works? Exactly, Jose and Vrash, thank you. So something to note, right? These variables, they are case sensitive. So if I call it first name with a capital N, oops, first name all lowercase, PHP interpreter doesn't know what that is. And you would be used to this from your Java class. So typically in PHP, we usually use camel case for naming things like variables and methods. Right. So it's good practice to have a standard naming convention. So I will use camel case. I'll start my variables with lowercase, and if there are multiple words, the subsequent words will have the uppercase. Okay, I'll just comment that out. What would I need to do? Let's say I want to print my name is, and then display the variable. How do you think we would do that? So we want some literal text, my name is. You can emit, yes, as long as you're consistent. Okay, Belinda, so we would have a p tag, yes. But how would we put together some literal text? Okay, so Sarah says we could concatenate. So Belinda, yeah, that would work. So let's look at concatenating. So how would we do it exactly? We'd have echo. What character should we put in here? No, that's okay. You're on the right track, Belinda. So what character would go here? We want a literal string, my name is, and then the variable. So what character should we put here?
You would start with quote marks because that is what indicates a string.
Okay, so quote mark, so single or double quotes? Which would you use?
I don't think it matters either way, unless you're using like single quotes within double quotes. In that case, you have to use double quotes.
Okay, good. That's a good point, Tyler. Well, let's try it. Let's try it with singles and with doubles. See what happens. If I try it with doubles, I can say my name is, and then I can just inject, we'll try to inject the variable inside. Okay, so I've got a literal string in double quotes, and then I've just put in my variable. Let's try that and see what happens. So I'll save, refresh, and it does work, right? Our variable shows up here. Maybe I'll comment out these lines for now. So it'll just say my name is Rich. I'm going to try it with the single quotes now. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now notice my code editor is kind of giving us a clue. What do you think will happen here? If you compare line 14 and 15, Japil says the single doesn't work. what indicator do we see visually that suggests we might get different results on 14 and 15? Yeah, that's right, the color coding. So Visual Studio Code here, it recognizes it's a variable. When I mouse over it, it's blue, and it says this is a string variable. Here, there's no code hint suggesting this is a variable. So when I save and refresh, notice it doesn't interpret the variable inside of single quotes. So this isn't going to work. So we're going to need to concatenate. If we want to use single quotes instead, we're going to have to do it this way. And PHP has a really weird concatenate operator. In most languages, like Java or JavaScript, the concatenate operator is a plus sign. Not in PHP. PHP uses the plus sign for something else, which is stupid. It actually uses the dot operator. So if we want to use single quotes, we have to append the variable outside, and notice it's blue, which indicates PHP, the interpreter recognizes this is a variable in this case. This is a little bit hard to read. Maybe I'll add some carriage returns. So line 14 with the double quote works. Line 16 with the single quote and the variable appended on, that also works. But injecting the variable inside of single quotes doesn't work. Tyler, that's an excellent question. We're going to get to that. Here's why. No, but that's okay, Belinda. You're on the right track. Let's say we want to add some HTML formatting here. Let's see here. Let's say, let's put each one first in a paragraph. So I'm going to add paragraph tags around all of these, so it'll be more readable. Oops. So now I need to append on my closing paragraph tag. Yeah, so it's inside the PHP. So we can add HTML. We will do this frequently because we often need to use HTML formatting around our dynamic content, right? This is common. So let's try this, right? So now I get 3 paragraphs. We know this one doesn't really work. We know line 14 works with double quotes. We know line 16 works with single quotes, where we're appending outside of the quotes. We inject the variable, and then we close the paragraph. So line 14, this seems easier, right? It's easier just to use double quotes and inject the variable. This is more complicated. To close the quote, use this silly append operator or concatenate the string together. But we actually will use this version most of the time. Can you think of why? Line 14 is easier, but we're actually probably going to use single quotes to combine HTML and PHP code. How come? Well, yes, that's true, Belinda. We could add multiple, easy to go in and out. That's true. I would suggest we're sometimes going to need double quotes inside of our strings. Could you think of why? Or a common example? When do you use double quotes in HTML. Yes. We commonly need double quotes inside of HTML tags. Can you think of an example of an HTML tag where somewhere inside that tag you have to use double quotes? Attributes. You got it, Sarah. So something like this. Or something like this, maybe. Right? Whenever we want to apply attributes, we use double quotes. So if we have a class in our style sheet called body content, we need the double quotes inside, which means our string needs single quotes. Here, if I try and add this, it becomes a problem, right? If I do body content here, I've now broken the quotes. So I'd have to escape them somehow. So I'd have to do something like that, for example. So these are now the same, but oftentimes we'll use the singles so that we can inject our quotes in our attributes. Now I realize we don't have a class. We could go and create one if we wanted. We could create a simple style sheet. So now they're the same. So if we use double quotes, we often will have to escape these HTML attributes. When we use single quotes, we can put the double quotes inside and we don't have to escape them. So these are equivalent. You can use this or you can use this. It doesn't matter. But you should be aware of the differences, right? That the single quotes, you can't inject the variables directly. We need to append them outside of the quotes. Double quotes let us inject variables and dynamic content, but it also means we have to escape those quotes around HTML attributes. Okay, we'll create one more simple file. We'll write one more line of code, and then we're going to call it a day. Yeah, I find exactly. So Kieran, some people might prefer this. I tend to prefer this. I actually think it's simpler. Andres, yes, I believe you can use the curly brackets inside of the single quotes. Let's just try it. You don't need them in the double quotes. Copy line 16. Let's see if we can do it this way. Good suggestion, Andres. Not sure if this will work. Always good to experiment. Yeah, so we can't inject it. You can use it inside of here. You don't really need the double quotes. So this doesn't work either. This gives us a literal. So I tend to prefer this syntax. Use single quotes around our strings so we can include attribute values in double quotes, and then I put the variables outside. Okay, so you have a few options. I'll probably use this method most of the time through the class. Okay, we're going to make one more file and we will call it a day. So go back to my file explorer. I'm going to make a file called phpinfo.php. title. Should have put this in there. And I'll just put on a body. I'll put all this in the chat if you want. You can just copy and paste it. I lied, I'm going to make one other small file when we're done. And we'll just put on a set of PHP tags. We will call the built-in Php info function to get details about the environment. So when we install PHP, it has a whole bunch of built-in functions we can use. We're going to use this one called Phpinfo, which my code editor recognizes. So just one line of PHP code here. So I'll add this code. I'm going to try the page out in my browser. So I'm now going to go to phpinfo.php. And this one little 7-character function, it spits out all of these details about our web server, the host, cookies are enabled, the file path, our IP address, etc. So this might be useful. For example, we want to capture a user's IP address or see whether their browser supports SSL for security. We'll look at that later. Question. What happens to this page? Let's say I take out these PHP tags. If I just do this, if I save my page and refresh it, what's going to happen with the page? So I've got the same function here, but there are no PHP tags on the page. Yeah. If I refresh it, right, it just treats this like HTML. So those PHP tags are really important, right? Without them, the code doesn't run. So yeah, it's just HTML. Yeah, it doesn't know that this is PHP without those tags. As soon as I put this function back into the tags, the code executes. But notice in the browser, even if I go back to our previous page, when we look at the page source, notice all we see is the HTML. We don't see the PHP tags. We never see the word echo. So the server-side script, it lives on the web server. The logic in PHP code does not get sent to our browser. That's interesting, Kieran. Does the page load properly like this? When you load the page? Not sure why it would be blank. So in the browser, the users only see the HTML. They don't see the server-side code. I'm going to show you one last thing. You don't have to do this. I'm going to create one more file just as an example, and then we're done. I want to show you the importance of the Php extension. So I'm just going to copy all this code. I'm going to make one more file. I'll just call it sample.html. I'm going to paste in, this is the exact same thing as our index.php. Notice my code editor treats it differently because it doesn't have a PHP extension. Yes, thank you, Belinda. Yep, different file. So what will happen if I load this page? If I load sample.html, what kind of result do you expect if I load the exact same code, but my page has an HTML extension? What are we going to get in the browser? So my files, my index file, my sample file, they're the same, but they have different file types. Any thought about what might happen here? Give it a try. Yeah, exactly, Hamid. It shows all of the code. So without that PHP extension, yeah, it just shows as HTML. The PHP interpreter does not read the code and execute it. So, and it also shows up in the source code. So this is really dangerous, right? Because I might have things like database credentials or API keys. That's right. We've told it it's just HTML, so just send it all to the browser. So it's really important that A, we don't forget PHP tags around any of our server-side code, and B, all our files need PHP extensions. Otherwise, we're at risk of A, our code won't run, but B, even worse, we're exposing potentially sensitive information and logic to users in their browser. So all our pages are going to have PHP extensions, and we need to ensure we've got these tags around any of our PHP code. So this is just kind of these are just throwaway files. We're not going to use these again. We will work on our index page later. We'll do more with it in later lessons. So that was really all I wanted to do today. So for next week, again, your checklist is here. A lot of you have introduced yourselves in the forum and completed the academic integrity pledge. Please make sure you complete those 2 items. You won't be able to see the quiz until you complete the academic integrity pledge. Okay? If you're watching the video later, then make sure you participate in the what we learned about PHP in 10 minutes discussion. Make sure you've installed XAMPP and have it running, and that you've created these sample pages, and you'll be able to find the week 1 quiz in the lesson 2 folder. It's not due until Sunday at midnight. It's only 5 questions. And we'll deal with this. I'll deal with that next week. Okay. I'll upload the videos later today, and then we'll start building our PHP Flick site next week. We'll start setting up our database, and we can start creating and saving movies into the database is what we want to do next week. Okay, so thank you very much for joining on a Monday morning. I know it's early. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. So have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your other classes. If you have questions, by all means, send me an email, or I'll stick around in the WebEx room for a few minutes. Other than that, have a great first week. I'll see you all next Monday. Yeah, absolutely. Which page did you want to see?